All right, there we go. So in this video, I want to talk about two things, italics and quotation marks, right? Now, italics also involves underlining because, things that we would italicize now very easily in our word processors, right? Our Chromebooks or laptops or whatever, by just highlighting a word and hitting Control I, italicizes it. Maybe 20 years ago, we didn't have that ability. So, everything was handwritten, and then you would send it off to a publisher to then publish that manuscript, print it up for you. And obviously, it's very difficult to discern italicized handwriting from not. So, the system was used to just underline anything that you wanted the publisher to italicize. So anytime you handwrite something that needs to be italicized, like you handwrite Macbeth or something, the word Macbeth, like as the title of Shakespeare's play, you underline it. Okay. All right. Now, kind of on that, right? When do I italicize? Right. We italicize when we are, like we italicize the titles of major works, plays, movies, novels, things like that. Okay. Um, we italicize foreign words. If there's a foreign word that we want to use that hasn't been, assimilated yet into English, we do that. We also italicize, words or letters or numbers or something that are being used as that. Like if I want to talk about the word, um, you know, um, I don't know, like instructional, right? Like I want to focus on someone else's use of that word as that word rather than the meaning of that word, like the idea, just that word, then I would italicize instructional. Okay. That's kind of nuanced there, sort of, just in that you might not come across that a lot right now, but you will later for sure. Okay. So, italics. Quotation marks, though, they indicate the titles of smaller works. So, not albums, but songs, not anthologies, but poems, um, not novels, but short stories. Okay. So, short stories, songs, poems, those are minor works. Okay. You would put those in quotation marks. Okay. Anything like slang terms or technical jargon or words that are invented because that happens sometimes, that's necessary, right? Quotation marks around those guys. Okay. Anytime we want to narrate discourse, conversation, right, dialogue, we put up the quotation marks as well for that. Okay. um, it is important. Okay, I've got some examples here, right? To kind of deal with these things. She said to me, comma, "You've killed my love of the English language." Okay, student actually said that. Good student, one of my best students. So here we've got the capital Y for you've, and we've got all that there, the comma before, before the quotation mark. Okay. But in that second example, right, she told me that I have, and then I start the quote, killed her love of the English language. Okay, and then there should be a quotation mark there at the end. You see that? And in that case, that goes more along the lines of like quoting textual evidence or something like that, like we do in class, as opposed to telling a story. She said this, he responded with that, and so forth. All right, so then I've got some examples there. We start the sentence with the quote, so blah blah, that quote, comma, and then we end the quotation marks, and then said this person. All right, or person says, comma, like we saw before the quote. Then blah blah. Okay, we've got blah blah as person, and then blah blah exclaims person. Um, okay, so some notes on this, right? Very important stuff. Commas and periods are always placed inside of those quotation marks, but um, you know, semicolons and colons are always placed on the outside. Okay? Question marks and exclamation marks, it depends, right? Are you quoting a question, or because if so, it would go inside the quotation marks. But if you're just you know like you're using quoted words in as a part of a longer question, then it would go on the outside. Okay. Same thing with the exclamation mark. Okay. Um, Longer quotes, like when you're quoting like, 3 or 4 lines or more from a piece of literature, you wouldn't use quotation marks at all. There's a way of dealing with that, and you need to come talk to me about that. Okay, in person. Same thing with multi-paragraph quotes. We won't do anything in this class that requires that, but you might see in literature when you have like the same person talking for a while, right? What happens is, when they start talking, quotation marks at the beginning of that paragraph, it goes on. The paragraph ends, no quotation marks. Okay. But at the beginning of the next paragraph, quotation marks. And then that goes to the end until whenever they're done talking. And then you have those final quotation marks. Okay. All right. And then two more things. Whenever you quote something that was quoted in the work, or maybe, I'm quoting from, you know, um, uh, you know, a story where, somebody then says something else, right? So I've got a quote within a quote. Um, you would have your quotation marks, the double quotation marks around your whole quote, but then single quotation marks anywhere where double quotation marks were in the original text. Okay. And then, of course, the final thing is that whenever you're quoting lines of like from a play or a poem, and you've got, like you'll notice that in plays and poems, you've got like lines. Okay, so a single sentence might take up 3 or 4 lines in a poem or a play, and you want to quote that sentence, right? You would need to put a slash between every one of those lines. All right. All right, then. There we are.